Hello and welcome to Theology Unleashed. I'm Arjuna, and today I want to talk about the scientific community and the hierarchical authority structure that is often used to make appeal to authority arguments instead of actually doing science or using scientific arguments. So there's this common idea that you can't weigh in on a scientific subject in a field which you don't have a degree in. And I think there's a kind of gaslighting that goes on here, because if you read high quality content or listen to high quality content on a subject and hear both sides, then you can come to a pretty well informed opinion on the subject. And if someone then comes along and says, oh no, what you're thinking here is wrong, and I know it's wrong because the big hats over there disagree with you, I think that's gaslighting. I think if you want to tell somebody who's actually studied a subject by consuming high quality content, not reading, low quality apologetics books debunking evolution, but actually reading the dissenting views from experts in the field, from people who've studied the subject, studied the arguments, and put together robust cases attacking mainstream theories, and heard from the people who respond to them. If you've heard both sides of, dissenting views from experts on a subject and come to a particular opinion, of course your opinion can still be wrong. But if somebody wants to come along and say, oh no, what you're thinking here is wrong, what they need to do is say, you haven't read this book from this guy over here. He actually brings some information and some arguments to the table that actually show that your opinion here is wrong, or just get into the granular details of how the argument is wrong. And I talked about this once in a preamble to a video I put out where I interviewed Edward Dutton, and he did most of the talking, which is probably a good sign, because it's probably a sign of a good interview when your guest does most of the talking. But I had a few things to say, so I recorded a preamble making my point. And I think that's the only time I've actually talked about this on the channel, where basically, I probably have talked about it before. The epistemic structure, the meaning-making structure that science uses often, at least when they're doing this appeal to authority, is no different from a religious epistemic structure. So it's basically a top-down authority structure where the people at the top, the people with the degrees, people with the positions in the universities, they get to decide what the truth is, and the rest of us just have to believe them. And if you disbelieve them, then you're anti-science. And I find this incredibly amusing, if not sad, because that's like the definition of being anti-scientific. That's, all the things that people like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, all the things they criticize religion for, are basically stemming from this dogmatic structure of you believe what the church says, and that's how you get your ideas about God and the world, and if you don't believe it, you're a heretic, and so on. Now, maybe I should quickly add, I think you can have religion without having that top-down authority structure too, where you actually, here's a tradition, no different from, say, a martial arts tradition, where if you want to be a good fighter, here's the things you do, and you can see people who follow that are good fighters, and you can practice it yourself and become good at fighting also. So similarly, you can find people who are God conscious. There's ways to measure that. They're detached from material things. They're not keeping up with the Joneses. They have a kind of internal happiness, and they have a bhakti. They have a nice devotional mood towards God. And you can look at what they have and think, I want what they've got. And then you can follow a process given by a tradition that has knowledge about God, and see that those same symptoms are developing in you from applying the practices. So we don't have to have that top-down epistemic process. So, and I think it's critical that we don't, because as soon as you do have that top-down authority structure, then you open the door to abuse, where someone can say, what God wants you to do right now is this, and you could have a crowd of followers not tuning into their inner conscience who go and do bad things because the leader is going off the rails. And there's plenty of cases of that happening. Or sometimes the leader is abusing children or something, and the followers don't report them because it's like, oh, this person's a sadhu, this person's saintly, we can't have them go to jail. And basically we need to, in all cases, even in religion, have our own meaning-making wits about us. Now, another point is you should either if you want to have a strong opinion on a subject, you need to have studied it. And this goes for scientists and it goes for laymen. So you don't have to have an opinion on a subject, but if you want to have a strong opinion that you're pushing on other people, you need to have done your homework. This is one thing that annoyed the hell out of me during COVID, when everyone was like, defending lockdowns, defending mandates and stuff, and I was giving counter arguments and people were coming back and saying, no, but the government said so, no, but the experts said so. It's like, yeah, okay, but here's why they're wrong, here's some arguments. And they're like, oh yeah, but they're the experts. It's like, you haven't even studied this and you've got an incredibly strong opinion. Like, I had friends that I disagreed with on things around that at the time, and they would not have a strong opinion about it. They'd be like, I personally have this view on it, I'm personally doing this myself, you do you. And I have respect for that, because it's like, you're not obligated to study something hard out and come to a well-formed opinion on something. You can just decide that you're happy to go along with the crowd, or happy to go along with the media, or happy to do what your mum said, and that's good enough for you. But if you want to push your opinions on other people, you need to have studied the subject in depth. So how this comes to the theory of evolution is scientists and the scientific community in general will disregard, dismiss uncritically people like Stephen Meyer and other scientists, the Discovery Institute in general, without ever having studied their work. And I've had pushback from people like this, and I asked them, have you ever studied Stephen Meyer's books? I've read several of his books. Here's what I think about his work. Have you studied any of his work? And in this particular case, the person didn't come back mentioning anything he'd studied, and seemed to just brought up the scientific authority thing, like, well, what degree do you have in order to say what scientists should be reading? It's like, sorry, I don't need a degree in anything in order to point out the simple epistemic principle that your degree of certainty on a subject should be proportional to how much you've studied it. So the scientists don't have to study Stephen Meyer's books. They're welcome to just ignore his books. But if they want to have an opinion on his books that they push on other people through this authority structure, then they have an obligation to study his work. So, I mean, there is a thing, well, there's the Brandolini's principle, which is basically, BS is easy to produce but hard to debunk. So if scientists debunked every idea that was presented on the internet, they'd spend all their time doing it and not have any time to do science. So that's true, but there's certain voices who raise objections to mainstream theories, who either due to their large following, like Stephen Meyer and the Discovery Institute. Stephen Meyer is a best-selling author multiple times over, and the Discovery Institute is one of the premier organizations raising challenges to the theory of evolution. So at least they have a duty to go after a couple of the opponents of evolution and study their work and grapple with it and raise whatever objections they feel are valid. But they don't seem to be doing that. So I think, yeah, sure, they don't have to study it, but I think they do have a duty to figure out, well, who are the best, either the most scientifically grounded opponents to our work, or who are the most popular. Because I think if someone's popular, you need to engage with their work just in order to set the record straight for the public. Because if someone is a fan of someone's work but their work actually needs to be debunked, they're not going to accept it if you just say, if you just dismiss it without actually engaging with their arguments. You need to engage with their arguments in order to reach the people who have studied the work and think it's good. So that's there. But also you might find that the work is good and does cause some theories to be rethought. I think that was all I wanted to say in this video. So if you like this sort of stuff, be sure to subscribe. This driving talking head video is something I'm trying out, so let me know what you think of it. And interested to know if you got any pushback for me or what you think of the subject, or any examples of scientists engaging in this kind of error of having a strong opinion on something they haven't studied, while thinking you're the problem for having a strong opinion when you actually have read several books on the subject, more than they have, at least with regards to the objections. So yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments, and I will catch you on the next one. Hare Krishna.